We'll move to the next item of business, which is a statement by Alistair Allen on a just transition for Aberdeen and the North East. The Minister will take questions at the end of his statement, and so there should be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Alistair Allen.
Presiding Officer, Aberdeen and the North East have, of course, been an energy powerhouse for 50 years. As we transition from the boom years of oil and gas towards the renewables revolution on the horizon, all of us in this chamber can, I think, acknowledge the opportunities that a just transition can now bring. At the heart of this transition are our oil and gas workforce. Experienced, highly skilled workers who are passionate about their work and their industry. These workers are the latest in a long line of people who have had opportunities to provide for their families, experience work overseas and build a modern, successful city in Aberdeen through the oil and gas industry. Beyond anything else, a just transition must exist primarily for them to ensure they have good, well-paid jobs that they can to ensure that they can thrive in the region and be proud to live and work there. This statement has been prompted by the publication of the Just Transition Commission's report into Aberdeen and the North East, and I thank them for their work, especially in travelling around the country and speaking to those directly impacted by the transition to net zero. However, it would be remiss, Presiding Officer, not to acknowledge that this follows on from a concerning series of announcements affecting jobs in the region, especially in the oil and gas industry. As the Chamber will know, most of the key policy levers for the North Sea oil and gas sector, including decisions on licensing, consenting and the associated fiscal regime, are matters reserved to the UK Government, and so it is not surprising that much of the report is addressed to them. The UK Government has recently concluded several periods of consultation on key aspects of the future of the North Sea. We, along with industry, workers and other stakeholders, are awaiting its next steps. These will be of vital importance for all aspects of the energy transition, including that of the workforce. So we are content to accept the headline recommendations in the Commission's report in principle. However, and as the Commission itself recognises, clarity on the direction of travel from the UK Government will be vital before we can undertake the planning, or some of the planning, that the sector needs. This is not a process the Scottish Government can do alone. In order to support workers and create an improved environment for investors, the UK Government needs to urgently provide stability and certainty in several key reserved areas. Firstly, the UK Government holds the powers to act in areas of taxation for the North Sea oil and gas sector. As such, we continue to call on it to listen carefully to concerns being expressed by businesses around the impacts of its Energy Profits Levy. The Energy Profits Levy was always supposed to be a temporary measure, and we must see an end date, as it is now affecting investment and jobs in the North East. Given that we are now seeing adverse effects of this policy, the UK Government should be considering when the earliest possible end date could be, in order to avoid more decisions like the one seen from Harbour Energy last month. They must urgently work with industry through its recent consultation, which closed on the 28th of May, and more widely to set out a stable, long-term fiscal regime for the North Sea. The aim must be to give the offshore energy sector much-needed certainty and treat it fairly alongside other parts of the UK economy. Secondly, decisions on licensing and consenting of North Sea oil and gas projects, which are also, of course, reserved to the UK Government. We continue to call on it to approach these decisions on a rigorously evidence-led, case-by-case basis, with climate compatibility and energy security as key considerations. The UK Government needs to bring forward its finalised positions from recent consultations on the future regulatory regimes as soon as possible to provide businesses and workers with much-needed certainty and stability. And thirdly, it is essential that the UK Government provides clarity and certainty for the Acorn project in the upcoming spending review. A positive final decision on Acorn and the Scottish Cluster, including announcing a full funding package and a clear timeline to achieve final investment decision, is required so that investors can continue their work developing this vital project. So we stand ready to work constructively with the UK Government and to increase our funding for Acorn if the UK Government commits. We will work with them and industry to ensure the fastest possible deployment of the Acorn project and Scottish cluster so that a just transition for our energy workforce can be secured. While clarity from the UK Government is needed in the key areas that I've mentioned, it will not stop us from taking the actions that are possible within our devolved competence. So our £500 million Just Transition Fund for the North East and Moray is currently open for new applications, with £8.5 million of new funding available this year. I would once again call on the UK Government to match our investment in this area. In the next Parliament, we will meet the remaining commitment for the fund and work with partners to deliver strategic investment in the region. As part of the fund, we've been prioritising skills investments through the industry-led Offshore Energy Skills Passport and the Energy Transition Skills Hub. We've also supported key projects in the region through our Energy Transition Fund and are currently working with the UK Government to develop a new regional skills pilot scheme for Aberdeen City and Aberdeenshire. The expansion of offshore wind represents a significant opportunity to create thousands of high-quality jobs, offering opportunities for those entering the job market for the first time and those who want or need to change careers, including as part of a just transition. We are investing up to £500 million over 5 years to support market certainty, create a highly productive, competitive offshore wind economy and to support thousands of jobs. We are providing funding to colleges in 25 to 26 to establish an offshore wind skills programme, helping to create region-specific training hubs for offshore wind skills, and have convened a short-life working group with industry and public sector partners to develop and deliver an evidence-based offshore wind skills action plan at pace. This activity by the Scottish Government could be even more impactful with the appropriate UK Government actions that I've mentioned. To secure project delivery in Scotland, as well as investor and supply chain confidence, the UK Government must prioritise the critical reforms necessary to improve the Contracts for Difference scheme, make transmission charges fairer and bring forward grid connection dates. We're also increasing, at this end, the Scottish Government end, however, the impact of the UK Government investment that is being provided. So the North East Investment Zone will unlock a funding package of up to £160 million from UK Government over 10 years to invest in a range of interventions designed to attract investment, boost innovation and create jobs. To conclude, Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government, as well as providing a package of non-domestic rates retention at the sites which the Regional Economic Partnership can use to further investment in the zone and associated economic infrastructure. In addition to all that, of course, the Scottish and UK governments have worked together on the Aberdeen City Region deal, on initiatives like the Offshore Energy Skills Passport and now on the investment zones. We know that joint working will be essential to unlock the potential of the North East and the City of Aberdeen during this transition. As I began by saying, Presiding Officer, all of us can acknowledge the opportunities that can be unlocked through a just transition, and the Scottish Government will continue to take forward efforts within our power as we await clarity from the UK Government on its next steps. I look forward to contributions from members and for their support in matching our calls to UK Government and expressing our collective commitment to the industry and workforce that has made Aberdeen and the North East so vitally economically important to our country.
Thank you. The Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in his statement. I intend to allow around 20 minutes for questions, after which we'll move on to the next item of business. I'd be grateful if members who wish to put a question were to press their request to speak buttons. And I call Douglas Lumsden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of the statement. And it's clear that the Minister has his head in the sand as the North East is facing an emergency right now. And the Just Transition Commission report needs to be a wake-up call for this devolved government, because the report sets out something we already know and have been warning about. It says there is still no transition plan for oil and gas workers. And we know that because the Just Transition Plan and Energy Strategy was meant to be delivered years ago. And I've repeatedly asked when they're going to be published, but it's clear that the Minister and Cabinet Secretary simply don't have a clue. And while this uncertainty continues, thousands of jobs in the North East are being lost. And the SNP can't keep passing the buck. We need an affordable, common-sense transition. And the front page of the P&J lays it bare today. 400 jobs to go a fortnight over the next 5 years. That is like a Grangemouth closing every 2 weeks. And the SNP are doing nothing to stop this. And they continue with a presumption against new oil and gas. So can I ask, does the Minister accept there can be no transition if oil and gas jobs are lost by the SNP demonising the industry? And will he apologise to the people of the North East for his government's failure to plan properly in failing to publish its energy strategy and Just Transition Plan? Minister.
Well, I could begin by saying that many of the plans that have been alluded to there exist in draft form. I could talk about the fact that some of them are dependent on court decisions at a UK level. But I think more importantly, or more relevantly, what I want to say in response to the very real and significant points that the member is raising about the challenges that are faced by the North East of Scotland and by his constituents. He mentions the idea that somehow that the challenges faced by that industry are the consequence of being demonised by government policy. I have to push back very strongly against that and merely point to the fact that the North East of Scotland faces real challenges, as he and I both acknowledge, due to the maturing of the North Sea Basin, due to the changes that will come regardless of government policy, but for which all governments, the Scottish Government and the UK Government, have now to prepare and are devoting real resources, as I have set out today.
Sarah Boyack.
Can I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement? Will he acknowledge the critical points made in the Just Transition Commission report about the need for significant acceleration of the development of offshore renewables to give confidence to invest in supply chains and renewables manufacturing to create the jobs we urgently need and deliver the skills needed? I'm told we need 8,000 welders. So where's the training coming from? And will the Scottish Government act to speed up the process of renewables projects and work to ensure the quality of jobs in offshore renewables are attractive to retain workers with oil and gas experience, where the role of trade unions in negotiating decent terms and conditions was highlighted by the Just Transition Commission, but not mentioned by the Minister? It's clear the workers need the Scottish Government to invest now and deliver the transformation promised by its £500 million Just Transition Fund. So, given the warnings from the RGU about the need to act now, why is the Minister kicking the investment urgently needed into the next term of Parliament? Minister.
Well, the member rightly points to the RGU report today and the many important lessons which I'm sure both governments will draw from it. I think on the point that she makes about skills and investment in skills, she'll be aware of the investment that the Scottish Government has made, working with the UK Government on initiatives like the Offshore Skills Passport, but on many other wider projects within our own responsibility, not least including the wider investment that has been made in Aberdeen and the Aberdeen area through the £125 million that have been allocated to the economic development of that area too. So I accept what the member says about the importance of the RGU report. We will learn from it, and we hope the UK Government will too.
Jackie Dunbar, to be followed by Liam Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Energy Profit Levy's extension, previously by the Conservatives and now the Labour Government, has had an adverse effect on Scotland's industry, with the Aberdeen and Grampian Chamber of Commerce stating that 10,000 North Sea jobs have been lost since 2022 due to the Energy Profit Levy. As Westminster policies inflict hardship on Scotland's workforce, can the Minister give details on any engagement between the Scottish and UK governments on this issue? Minister.
Well, the Scottish Government has made its position plain both publicly and privately to the UK Government about the the fact that we feel that the levy has to have an end date, about the fact that we have concerns about the increase in the levy and about the impact that that clearly has, as the member is only too aware, on investment decisions made in the sector in the north east of Scotland. So we will continue to make that position clear very clearly publicly and also in our ongoing engagements with the UK Government.
Liam Kerr, to be followed by Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. A 2010 report found that offshore wind could create 28,000 jobs in Scotland by 2020. 15 years on, the latest figures show fewer than 4,000 jobs have actually been created. Today's RGU report, striking the balance, says up to 400 North Sea oil and gas jobs could vanish every 2 weeks over the next 5 years. So what precise steps is the Minister taking to address this government's failure to create offshore wind jobs for oil and gas workers to transition to, and what and when are the measurable outputs?
Minister.
Well, the member won't be too surprised to know I don't accept every premise of that question. Given what I have just said,
Let's hear the Minister.
Given what I have just said about the fact that some of these areas are indeed within our responsibility, some of them are for conversations between the two governments, some of them are, as the member is only too keen on this fact, plainly reserved to the UK Government, and we must get adequate or helpful decisions from the UK Government on everything from ACORN to decisions around licensing to all manner of areas that are in the all manner of areas that are within the UK Government's responsibility. However, one of the messages that does come through very clearly from both reports that we're talking about today is the need to avoid a gap in the coming on stream of offshore wind jobs and the issues that have been caused, as I mentioned, by the decline of the North Sea basin. So the Scottish Government, within the areas for which we have responsibility, and that includes everything from the investment in the North East that I have mentioned to working consistently with offshore wind developers, all of these things will contribute, I believe, to minimising that gap and to addressing the real issues to which these two reports point.
Kevin Stewart, to be followed by Michael Mara.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The RGU striking the balance report today and the potential job losses is stark and is worrying for people in Aberdeen and the north east of Scotland. Has the Scottish Government had any indication from the UK Government that they will help attain a just transition by making changes to the Energy Profits Levy to save oil and gas jobs, by giving the go-ahead for the ACORN carbon capture project, or by match funding the Scottish Government's Just Transition Fund? Or don't they care?
Minister.
Well, the ACORN project to which the member alludes is not only vital in supporting decarbonisation in Scotland, but as the member has made clear, it's also an opportunity for new industry, as outlined amongst many other places in Project Willow. Business leaders, including Sir Ian Wood, have made very clear that any further delays to ACORN would have serious economic consequences for Scotland. The UK Government has acted swiftly, it must be said, south of the border, and it is now vital that they also take action to support ACORN and avoid a cliff edge of job losses in Scotland. They must also provide a full funding package and timeline for the ACORN project in next week's comprehensive spending review. And as to the other points that the member makes about the billions of pounds that will be added to the Scottish and UK economies if we get this right, I can only concur.
Michael Mara, to be followed by Karen Adam.
The UK Labour Government has listened and acted around industry concerns over activity in the North Sea Basin, and I'm very sure they'll continue to do so. In fact, it's vital that that happens. I want to know what the Scottish Government is going to do about the skill shortages that are already undermining the prospect of employment in the North East. Sarah Boyack highlighted a shortfall of 8,000 welders. Previous questions just heard a few minutes ago related to the Government's performance in this area as well. But the welcome announcement of a very small sum of money for an offshore wind skills programme in colleges was made at the budget. The progress has been grindingly slow, as in so many of these areas, in actually seeing this money on the ground. When will that money actually be available to colleges in the North East?
Minister.
Well, my understanding is that the college money has just recently been approved, but the member makes an important point about the skills and the transfer of skills. The Scottish Government would certainly recognise the critical importance of providing a current and a future workforce with the lifelong skills that they need. So, for instance, the recently published 2024 Green Jobs Barometer shows that Scotland does continue to lead the way in creating green jobs, with new data showing that the number of such green jobs advertised has tripled since 2021. We will continue to work in areas like the one I mentioned, the skills passport, and also work with the UK Government on that to ensure that the skills that we have for the future are there in our workforce.
Karen Adam, to be followed by Maggie Chapman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Between 1990 and 2022, Scotland's emissions halved, while the economy grew by 66.6%. This shows us that climate action and economic growth and prosperity can be achieved simultaneously. Scotland has already done it. Presiding Officer, ensuring the future security and prosperity of our oil and gas workers must be at the heart of our plans for a just transition towards net zero. How is the Scottish Government going to ensure that this is the case, and what is the Minister's message to the sector?
Minister.
Well, firstly, the member is quite right to point to the fact that economic growth and decarbonisation of our economy certainly do go hand in hand. We're committed to achieving that net zero by 2045, and we're proud of our record of climate action to date. Any further decisions around this have to be got right and have to be the product, as I've mentioned many times now, of cooperation between governments. That's why we continue to call on the UK Government to approach, for instance, decisions for the North Sea oil and gas projects on a rigorously evidence-led, case-by-case basis. A truly just transition will involve building on our strengths as an energy powerhouse, utilising, as I've mentioned many times before, our skilled workforce. These economic opportunities around net zero are real economic opportunities, and as I say, the record in Scotland is one of marrying up that target, that aim around the environment with real economic growth.
Maggie Chapman, to be followed by Liam MacArthur.
Thank you. Last month's Just Transition Commission's report is pretty scathing. There's still no transition plan for oil and gas workers, no clear training plan to retain skills. Accelerating offshore clean energy is essential, and it also says regional planning with genuine community participation is vital. The Minister didn't mention communities once in his statement. Can he say how communities can expect to benefit from the collective commons that are our renewables as we harness them for our future, and how communities will be involved in the planning that must happen now with urgency? Minister.
Well, the member is right to say that communities have to be involved in the planning of these issues. That's why, one of the reasons why the Scottish Government is so committed to initiatives around the environment within communities. But the point that's been made about planning for skills is clearly important too. In the programme for government, indeed, the First Minister reaffirmed this point, committing to introducing a new Scottish Government-led approach to national skills planning and to strengthen regional skills planning to ensure that, for instance, post-school provision is aligned and responsive to Scotland's strategic skills needs in this area.
Liam MacArthur, to be followed by Michael Matheson.
Thank you, and can I thank the Minister too for early sight of the statement. His statement did point to a number of areas where action and direction from the UK Government is required, and that's not unreasonable, not least in relation to the decision around the Acorn project. But he'll be aware of the action and direction that's needed from the Scottish Government as well. In that context, and in relation to the offshore energy skills passport, this is a project that needs to be industry-led. But there are concerns around the exorbitant retraining costs. So what steps is the Minister taking to engage with the sector to make sure that the funding available is there and directed to where it is most needed?
Minister.
Well, the member is right to point to the areas that are within our responsibility and for which we take seriously. Not least, he's mentioned our involvement in the skills passport. Certainly the aim of the Skills Passport is to be a free-to-use tool to address to the point he makes about the need to ensure its accessibility. The Scottish Government has previously provided £3.7 million of funding from the Just Transition Fund to support industry-led, as he mentions rightly, development of an energy skills passport, and we will continue to work with the UK Government and industry to develop this.
Michael Matheson, to be followed by Tess White.
The Minister's already made reference to the repeated delays that we've experienced with the progression of the ACORN project, delays that were caused by the previous Conservative Government, an indecision that's been causing further delay by the present Labour Government. Does he recognise that one of the real risks of these repeated delays is that those who are investors in the project may start to back out and that the partnership could break up? Can I therefore ask the Minister, if the ACORN project does not move forward at an urgent pace, can I ask him, what does he believe will be the economic implications for the North East of Scotland and for the rest of the country? And also, what does he believe will happen to the economic importance of CCS, the North Sea, to meeting our net zero targets?
Minister.
Well, I think all concerned, including, as far as I can see, the CCC, acknowledge that carbon capture, utilisation and storage is essential to Scotland meeting the net zero aim that we all have for Scotland. Clearly, I don't want to point too much to the negative scenario that the member outlines, although he's right to outline the risks from it. But clearly, if we are going to find alternative industries in the member's part of Scotland in Grangemouth in the future, if we are going to develop the infrastructure that is needed for carbon capture, utilisation and storage, then decisions at the UK Government level are needed. I don't say that to make a political point. They are simply needed. They have been made elsewhere in the UK, and it's time for them to be made regarding Scotland now.
Tess White, to be followed by Bill Kidd.
At the current glacial rate of investment, it would take the SNP government until 2083 to spend the so-called Just Transition Fund. The Cabinet Secretary herself will be 114 years old, and the Minister will be 112 years old. Against this background, could the Minister outline just how the SNP government will meet the remaining commitment for the fund in the next Parliament?
Minister.
Well, were I to accept the premise of that question, I would be ungallant enough to try and work out what the member's age would be in these scenarios. But I don't accept the scenario or the premise. The commitment has been given to up to £500 million over this period. And also, as I say, I think our track record in providing other investment, such as the £125 million for Aberdeen and the area, show that our commitment is real.
Bill Kidd, to be followed by Fergus Ewing.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And learning from the Just Transition for Aberdeen and the North East, can the Minister advise how communities and businesses across Scotland will benefit from Just Transition to net zero, and how the Scottish Government will ensure a greener, fairer future for all?
Minister.
Well, the Just Transition to net zero clearly is a huge economic and social opportunity for not just for the North East, which we've quite rightly been focusing on today, but for Scotland as a whole. And communities are uniquely placed to play a critical role in shaping and driving forward that transition to a low-carbon and climate-resilient economy. So that's why the Scottish Government has committed up to £6 million of funding this year for our network of 24 climate action hubs. We're delighted to see that the impact the hubs are having in enabling communities to make positive changes for a more sustainable and resilient future. And additionally, the Just Transition Fund for the North East and Moray has so far allocated £75 million to supporting projects and communities across the region to create jobs, support innovation and secure the highly skilled workforce of the future that we have rightly throughout this debate pointed to.
Thank you. I have some additional requests. If members are concise, we can fit more in. Fergus Ewing.
Presiding Officer, 400 people in the oil and gas industry, according to Robert Gordon's report published today, will lose their jobs every fortnight. The only transition facing these 400 every fortnight is a transition to take up jobs in the Emirates, Houston, Norway and countries that actually believe in developing their own oil Surely the windfall tax must end now. There is no windfall, it's just a tax. And consents to our own gas and oil reserves must be granted. So my question to the Scottish Government is, when will you come off the fence, Minister? We know the evidence is there that Rosebank and Jackdaw will emit in their production a fraction of fracked gas is supported by Donald Trump. Why are we becoming Donald Trump's little helpers? Why are we not pressurising the Labour government to do what everybody can see in Aberdeen must be done without delay, because we are in the biggest jobs crisis this country has seen?
Always through the chair, members. Minister.
The member will appreciate that nobody in this chamber is disputing the enormity of the problem that will face any individual or family in the north east of Scotland facing the kind of situations that the member describes. I don't want to minimise that in any shape or form. On consents, again, the member is well aware that the Scottish Government has no role in the consents process, other than that we believe that they should be subjected not only to economic but environmental tests. And on the windfall tax, where I think we are in agreement, the member and I, the point at which this could be described as a windfall tax, or the point at which its current level could be described as a windfall tax, is passing, and the Scottish Government has made clear the fact that the UK Government needs to clarify its position on this now.
Brief supplementaries. Douglas Ross, to be followed by Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the Minister confirm that it was the SNP Scottish Government who called for the Energy Profits Levy to be introduced? And therefore, can he also tell us when he believed it should have been removed? Minister.
As the member is well aware, we supported the levy as a temporary measure. We do not support the increase in the levy to its current date, and we do not support the fact that the UK Government has appeared to put no end date on it.
Mercedes Villalba.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement. We've heard from several members today the new report by Robert Gordon University in Aberdeen, which warns that the energy workforce could shrink by 400 jobs every 2 weeks for the next 5 years. Yet rather than use this statement to outline a much-needed industrial strategy for the North East, the Minister tries to blame job losses on the redistributive windfall tax, on the obscene profits seen by Shell and other oil and gas multinationals. Presiding Officer, in all those years of rampant profiteering, my constituents in the North East were no safer from economic shock, no safer from energy poverty, and no safer from job insecurity. It does not trickle down. Why does the Minister want us to believe it does?
Minister.
I'm not sure what kind of conversations the member is having either with industry or with the workforce or constituents, for that matter, in the north east of Scotland. All I can say is that I receive regular representations about the levy and about the fact that it is constraining investment, much needed investment, not only in the oil and gas industry, but indeed in decommissioning work too.
Thank you. That concludes the ministerial statement. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business.